You need better boundaries. Huh. Have you ever had that said to you? Uh, have you ever said that to somebody? You need better boundaries. And I wonder what sort of feelings got engendered in you when you heard them say that to you. Um, um, I'd like to say, actually, first of all, you need a better knowing of yourself, of who you really and truly are. I remember a time when I had someone wanted to come and see me when I was pastoral, doing some pastoral counselling sort of thing. And so she came, and often when people come to a counsellor and so on, they get presented with a piece of paper to say, this is the rules, these are the expectations, da 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 da, da, and they have to sign it. Well, I sort of flipped it around, and after talking about what I can offer and sort of thing, I said to them, so, what are your boundaries? And I remember them looking at me like, what on earth are you talking about? And I said, well, okay, if I need to contact you, um, do you want me to ring you on the phone, or do you want me to send you a text, or is it via email? What is the expectation of that? And they suddenly realized that I was actually respecting their need to express who they were. And so they said, okay, you can ring me. And so I said, okay, can I ring you? What time can I ring you between? Can I ring you at 10 o'clock at night? And they said, oh, no, of course not. And I said, great. I just want to hear what you are expressing as you, who you are yourself. So they said, oh, you can ring me anytime up until 8:30. They had never been asked questions like this before. They had never felt respected for who they were and what their values were. You see, I think everybody has a right to be who they are, all right, and express who they are, and to acknowledge that they are different to others. And so I want to know who they are. What is it that makes them you? And so I've got to ask you, what are your deepest values, or have you simply just adopted them from others, or they're other people's intrusion over your life, and you've internalized them and made them your own without even actually thinking about, is this really me? Is this really what I want to be? Are these real? Is this really who I am? And I've always struggled with trying to understand this whole concept of boundaries. And I think it's because I know that it's important to have rules and laws and regulations and all that sort of stuff, but I often want to know why they are there. Why are they there? Because I want to work from the inside out, not from the outside in. I want to work from the inside out, and I want to deeply know what's important here. And um, recently, just this last week, I had a dinner with some German tourists who just got off the plane, come to New Zealand for a holiday to look around our beautiful countryside. And they were saying to me, um, why were all these regulations when we came into the airport about not bringing any food or fruit or vegetation into New Zealand? Why we've never been to anywhere else that has had so many rules and regulations that we couldn't do. And so I explained that we're very, very, very careful about our environment here, and that often people bring with them, unwittingly and sometimes with with knowledge, diseases, plants, animals, and things that could actually ruin our beautiful countryside and our nature. And so we are very strict around what can come in here. And I explained this is actually not just a rule, it's a heart expression from the people of this land to say, we want to protect what is really important to us. And we're having dinner down the beach, and we're looking out the beautiful ocean and islands. and the sun was setting, the birds were singing, and I think they suddenly got it that we value what we've got here and we want to protect it. We have an internalized worth, a sense of worth and beauty about what we have here. So I've got to ask the question: what came first, the boundaries or the internalized value of what we have, and then we sort of set the boundaries in the lines. See, I think there are three types of boundaries. The first type are kind of imposed upon us. So, like when I was a child, I was told, don't touch the hot stove, don't run in the traffic, don't eat too much sugar, do eat your vegetables. They're imposed from my parents because they love me and they wanted to um, teach me some real basic rules of life. And we get all sorts of these sort of imposed stuff. If you're part of a religious community, faith community like I was, they were imposed by our church leadership and by what the Bible says and so on, rules and expectations about what good behaviour looks like. And the government sets these imposed boundaries. So on the road that goes past my house, you're only allowed to drive 50 kilometres an hour along that particular road. Lots of people don't follow that rule, they go a lot faster. But they're imposed from us outside, it's black and white, it's there. The next level of boundaries is what I would call adopted boundaries. And these are boundaries that we kind of adopt into ourselves. They don't really feel part of us, but we accept them, we understand them, we try to live our best, live within the confines of them. Well, yeah, they become a habit. We might kick against them, push back against the limits, but yeah, all right, we'll work within them. You know, the rules say don't eat lots of sugar, but I like a little bit of chocolate. Um, those sort of rules, we adopt them. They're not pure family members, but we adopt them in. But they're not deeply internalized ownership into the heart working outwards. The third type of boundary, I believe, is what I would call internalized owned boundaries. And these come from a real deep, heartfelt ownership of who we are and what we're about. This is who I am, this is what I believe, and this is the outworking. Like it or not, this is me. You have a deeply personalized and own belief about certain things. And like the example I shared with our beautiful country here, I think every New Zealander has a deep, heartfelt belief about the value of this country and its ecosystems and why we need those boundary controls. It's deep, it's really important to us. And so we impose it on other people. This is the rules. You want to come here? This is the rules. Want to enjoy our countryside? This is the rules. Because it's deeply and internally owned by us. You see, I believe that better boundaries come from the inside out. Now, I want to take you on a little journey about how this has played out in my life around the idea of having a Sabbath or a day off, a day of just ceasing to rest, play, and worship. So, impose boundaries. My family, um, we decided that as a child, my parents they didn't work on Sunday. We went to church, we visited family, we rested a lot. It was kind of imposed on me, and back in the 1960s, 1970s, it was actually more of a cultural thing. You know, shops weren't open where I lived, and for even non-church goers, they lived within this culture of having a day off. Most people just chilled out because it was imposed. Uh, then the next level is adopted boundaries. And as I grew older, I left home and I had to make a choice whether I adopted this value, this belief into myself. And I mostly adopted it, but with more shops opening on a Sunday and the world seemingly treating the day like any other day, it actually got harder and harder for me to cease and to rest. I still adopted it, but it was harder. It was a struggle. And other people around me didn't actually hold that as a deep value. So it was even harder. But recently, I have been really working on internalizing having one day off a week, every week, for simply resting, playing, um, going to worship, being with friends, relaxing. I try not to even go near a shop if I have to. I just don't want to. I don't want to be involved in the world's commerce for 24 hours. I prepare meals ahead of time so I don't have to cook on the Sunday. Um, and I don't do this just to comply with like any external rules. But what I've found is that the Sabbath is extremely good for me and the people that I love and care about. It helps my body. It teaches me to plan. It frees me to focus on worship on that day and play. And I have a holiday every 7 days. I don't keep it with religious rule bound rigor. Look, if there was an emergency and I needed to go and buy something from the shops, of course I would. If I had an emergency in my work and I needed to attend to it, of course I would. Jesus never said to follow it religiously like that. No. Um, but this freedom has come into my life around Sundays that it's just what I do. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to go into a shop. I'm not going to go online and buy something. Uh, I'm fighting against the culture, but it's so deeply internalized that it is so good. And looking at the life of Jesus, I think boundaries one of the big issues that Jesus um, challenged with people's lives. And like there was a group of people that followed him around. I'd probably call them the boundary police. You know, they were the judge, the jury, and eventually they became the executioner. And they were the ones who questioned his boundaries or a seemingly lack of them. I'm sure if they were around these days, they would have said, "You need better boundaries, Jesus. You need to set some boundaries." And it was things like he was having meals with sinners. He was having meals with tax collectors and lepers and people that they disapproved of. But he didn't. He welcomed them in. And one of the big issues for the boundary police was Jesus and his issue, his Sabbath, and that he continued to just do the right thing, good things, and what they would consider work, he considered just ministry, and it was just a generous outflowing of who he was, and he was just doing what he saw um, the Father doing. He said, "I and the Father are one." And because of that, they picked up stones to try and kill him. And I think every one of us needs a better knowing of ourselves. Um, you don't need better boundaries. You need a better knowing of yourself. And then the boundary lines will appear naturally to yourself. A better knowing of myself is that I have a very deep value of having a Sunday that's completely free. So when something comes along that's going to cross into that, I know it. I can see it and I can say, "Oh, not for me. That's fine. No, 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 I'm not going to come and do work on a Sunday. No, no." Um, and those lines will appear, and the lines where others won't be allowed to cross. And you'll have this like kind of Christ-like strength in you. And these lines describe you as you and not as others. And there is a kind of an integration of who you are as a whole, as a complete whole. And there's a passage in the Bible, it says, "I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. I will be their God and they shall be my people." And I want God to write his laws on my heart so that they sort of come out as a heart expression. So the big question of this is, what is really important to you? What is deeply important for you? For example, as as I have an allergy to egg, it is deeply important that I don't eat eggs. It's a heartfelt thing. It's a body thing. I live my life around this. Others know it, respect it. They know this is a boundary for me. I can't eat eggs, and they work around it. Look, I deeply hold the importance of having a full day of rest, a ceasing, a Sabbath. I live around this. Others know it, respect it, and they begin to work around it, and we actually start to create a culture of our own. Look, as I listen and explore somebody else's heart, I want to come and understand what's deeply, deeply important to them, who they really, really are, and then help to understand and empower the lines that define them. Better boundaries come from a knowing of who you are. Hey, I hope you found this helpful. I found it really helpful in writing it just to clarify some things in my brain. And so, um, if you want to send me an email address in the bottom of the show notes. If you want to talk to me one to one about this, I love to talk to people and listen to them. Send me an email and let's set up a time. By the way, everything I do is there's no charge, only a donation if you're able to. And so, if you're able to give a donation, I just really appreciate that, because of what it does is it helps me to continue to create content like this for others to take in and learn from. Hey, until next time, I pray that instead of working on better boundaries, that you'll work on discovering who you really and truly are, the values that you deeply hold and you want to strengthen and shine out to the world. Okay, bye.